this downtown area that you see in the back of the screen, and it's basically what we worked on in the previous episode, is very much not done. And today's video will sort of bridge the gap, that specifically that patch of grass that surrounds the parking lot in the middle of the screen. That's, you know, what you're seeing right now. We're going to be sort of covering that with a whole bunch of buildings and pedestrian paths and shortcuts and pretty much all those things that make Nydal look the way it does. But on top of that, as you probably guessed from the title and the thumbnail, we're going to be adding a construction site, which is something that many of you have been suggesting for quite some time, probably since we began this project. I don't know why I kind of haven't added construction sites. I used to add a lot of them in previous projects when I did I don't know, Cedar Valley or Sinu. Like, I just added construction sites on every chance I had. I figured this would be a good area to do it, because obviously this is a sort of a brand new neighborhood in the city, as you can see from all the architecture that's taking place, and it makes sense for more construction to be happening alongside this hill. Now, these set of buildings that I'm adding here are, well, all different sizes, but for the most part they're medium density in terms of the number of floors that they have. The buildings themselves actually look a bit more taller than what they are, mainly because of the terrain differences. But when I looked at this from like street level, like when I'm just like reviewing the work I did, and I just took a glance at how things look from what a normal person would see them, it looks like pretty realistic for the most part. I mean, I'm obviously not aiming for like the most accurately representation of your typical average European town here. I'm just going for like a European vibe sort of aesthetic, but should probably do a better job at showing those angles of the city in these kinds of videos. I tend to mostly do that during live streams because, you know, there's much more flexibility in terms of the camera angles that I can pull off, mainly because I don't have to worry about frame rate drops. If I had to do like a first person view in a video, it will be very tricky or very laggy, like very tricky to get it smooth and very laggy because Nydal right now, it's getting, in case you were wondering, an average of, at the lowest point, it's getting like 7-8 FPS, which I know it's like not the worst compared to other of my colleagues that play City Skylines and go nuts with details, but it's pretty rough compared to like the super smooth 60 frames per second that you see here, because obviously this video is sped up, in case you didn't know that. The same happens with the cinematics. Cinematics are sped up 6 times, so that way I record at 10 frames per second and then speed it up 10 times. Anyways, I'm going totally off topic here. Point is, if you catch my live streams, usually at the end I would just show what the city looks like from the perspective of a citizen, and you know, the areas surrounded or areas covered by buildings, especially buildings on slopes, tend to look much more realistic from that angle than from above, which is what I usually show in the cinematics. There's some limitations to the cinematics mod that I'm using. Apparently it doesn't play well with like super low to the ground angles, or at least sometimes it's kind of hit or miss. I haven't quite figured out what the situation there, what the situation is there. Yes, that's what I was trying to say. But I'll do my best to share some like first person angles in future videos. In fact, I think I included a couple in the cinematics at the end of this one, so you can get a much more accurate look on how the city looks, you know, from a different point of view. So talking about this construction site, I'm using these like classical Beard Monkey construction assets, which are very, very flexible. These are all props that you can combine in multiple different ways. And in retrospect, as I was reviewing the footage, the episode has been recorded by the time I'm doing this commentary, but I was just reviewing the footage before I started this part of the commentary, and I realized that I could have gone a little bit more detailed in this area. I did add quite a bit of detail, don't get me wrong, but I think I could have added a few more props just laying around more than your typical excavator and gravel, as you're going to see me place down in just a minute. And I also decided to add that rural road, that it's kind of a rough sort of road for the construction equipment. That's what I was trying to say. The only issue that I have with this road, and it doesn't, like, so far I haven't found any single road connection that would meet it at the same level. You can see that there's like a bit of a gap there at the entrance. I'm not entirely sure how to address that, or if it's like meant for a very specific type of road. Actually, the one that I should have tried is a regular concrete pedestrian. Just basically what I'm looking for is a better transition between the roads and this sort of inner road. In my mind, they just like lay down a patch of pavement just so that trucks would not drive on the dirt. But they didn't put a lot of effort into having a nice driveway for trucks, because obviously it's going to get destroyed as trucks pull in and deliver all the materials and pull out all the the byproducts of a construction site. Talking about construction sites, I think I should probably add a few more of those. Like I was saying at the beginning of the episode, I used to add a lot of these construction sites all over the place in my previous projects, and for some reason, Nydal, I've been just sort of following the same pattern and repeating the same type of buildings over and over again. It's almost as if I have to force myself to like change aesthetic, like on command, if that makes any sense. So yeah, something that I need to work on, as well as adding some soccer fields. By the way, mind you, Nydal is still very small. Like, it looks big, but I was just taking a glance at what it looks like, just from above, and in terms of the size and dimensions of everything, it's still relatively small. We're probably going to go a little bit bigger than where we are right now, especially once we add suburbs. Suburbs are going to be covering a major part of the surrounding areas of Nydal, or at least that's the plan. I don't know if I'll actually ever manage to do that, because we've been working on this project for over half a year now. Actually, let me pull it up, because I tweeted or retweeted a screenshot the other day when I was doing the pre-production of this series. When was this? This was on July 24th, 2018, and we're right now, at the time of this recording, it's basically the end of February 2019. So yeah, almost, basically exactly almost half a year, which is crazy to think about. And I feel like we're not anywhere near done with this project. Now, another thought that I had as I was looking at this tweet and just pondering about the work that we've done to get to this place, compared to previous projects that I've done in cities, I'm not. But by the time I would reach this amount of episodes, I would be pretty burnt. But Nydal, I'm like still really pumped, and I have a ton of ideas and things that we can do. So there's something about that I thought it was interesting, and I love to keep exploring. What things we can do with this project. Now, switching gears for a little bit, let me talk about what's happening on the screen. So I kind of went to a different area of the city, an area that we sort of laid down the roads a long time ago. I would say at least a couple months ago. And I just decided that I wanted to slowly start bridging all of these gaps, as I said at the beginning of the episode, mainly because I wanted to lay down new tram lines, at least one more tram line that's going to take place. I don't think I actually recorded the footage of me getting a new line, because mostly all of the tram tracks were laid down in previous videos. So all I had to do for this one is literally just add a new line, and I didn't think. It doesn't look great on a timeline when you add that. That's usually something that I reserve for live streams, but in this case, I just wanted, cinematics with trams driving around, so I just went ahead and did it and didn't really record it. Time-lapse happened way too fast for you to be able to even notice that I added a tram line. It's not, like a major endeavor, adding the one tram line that goes through downtown. Remember that avenue with the tram tracks on both sides? That's basically the one I activated, and it connects to sort of the historical downtown part of the city that we worked on for forever ago at this point. So for now, it's still pretty straightforward. It doesn't connect to the main station. There's intersecting lines that would get you from the main station to the downtown area if you so desire. You know, let's say you're visiting the city or something like that. But it's definitely something that I wanted to slowly, you know, start integrating. And there is a few more lines that I want to, you know, expand to. But after that, I will probably just switch to buses. I don't think I want to have trams going absolutely everywhere in the city. I don't think that's super realistic, even though I'm not aiming for like the most realistic thing ever. But I do want to have a decent mix of, you know, buses and trams and just multiple modes of transportation. Actually, I don't know if we have taxis. I think I need to add the taxi depot for us to have taxis. We should probably do that in a future episode. But yeah, this right here is me continuing the same pattern of mixing newer sort of buildings, newish looking buildings, I guess is the word that I was looking for, with some more classic European style buildings. In this case, because the terrain height was so high, like I was trying my best to see or to find a seamless way of transitioning between these elements. It's getting sometimes when the space between the many roads and the height difference is too high, it really gets very difficult to get them to look right. And there's a lot of trial and error, and obviously there's a lot of ploppable surfaces that you're going to see me add in just a minute here to address mainly these slopes in the roof that don't necessarily look nice. They don't make sense. I try to turn them usually into like balconies or terraces so that I can just put some tables and a fence, and just suddenly becomes a place where people can just chill. If, you know, considering this would be offices mixed with residential areas and commercial areas, you have a whole variety of people who live there, but also you may have like cool coffee shops with like a view, or restaurants of many kinds. That's sort of what I'm aiming for here. This one was particularly tricky because you can see how narrow that is. And at that point I figured, you know what, let's just, being using this technique of like cloning the same building and sort of rotating it to look the different way. And that sort of makes it slightly easier to get a seamless connection between the lower road and the upper road. And since the two architecture styles look very different, look very similar, because it's literally the same building clipped, it just looks like one big building that is connecting both roads. And just usually what I do is I lower them or raise them up so that the different floors sort of match with one another. And you can see there's very little, I mean, obviously if you look very close, you're going to see a ton of mistakes and odd things, but at a glance, when you're looking at the city from above, it just looks like one cohesive thing, if that makes any sense. Now, at some point, what you saw me do there is like I removed some extra props that I added. I was just playing around with having different sort of decorations for this parking lot area, and I was just combining all of these. These are props from Green City's expansion pack, by the way. They just search for pod in the and find it, and you're gonna find them. But of course, if you have Green Cities enabled, actually. Yeah, I think you actually need Green Cities to be able to access those. Another thing that I'm trying here is, since I didn't want the road to sort of end with that curvy sort of end of the road aesthetic that pretty much is the default whenever you place down some of these roads, or any road for that matter, actually. I don't think there's a type of road that doesn't end with like a curvy end. But in this case, I wanted like a flat sort of square boxy sidewalk, and I just went ahead and put some props to sort of limit the end of the parking lot. And for the first time, I think I'm trying this gated sort of parking lot with the two barriers in the front, which are obviously open because, you know, that's the asset that I had at the time of this recording. But honestly, I'm actually pretty happy with how it looks. So it just gives you something to look at, and it just adds a little bit more of detail to the area in general. Finally, we end up with another one of these big triangles in between buildings. I've sort of been talking about these in previous episodes on different ways on how to address this. Some of you have been suggesting that you should probably add some parking spaces to areas like this. In this case, I just decided, you know, the place was big enough that I decided to add one of these coffee shops from the Park Life expansion pack. So all I have to do, I mean, it's a pretty detailed asset on its own. All I have to do is just add some clusters of grass and bushes around it. The issue with parking spaces in general is because because of the game works, they usually need to be flat. I mean, actually, always they need to be flat. And some of these gaps in between buildings that I end up with are usually at a slope or have like a gentle sort of gradient to them. So it's not as easy to just simply put down a car unless you want cars that are like half sunken into the ground, which doesn't necessarily look the best. Even though cars are pretty uncontrollable in this game, as you probably already saw it in my cinematics and in the time lapse itself, how cars are just going all kinds of crazy directions. Anyways, finally, this is the last thing we're going to be working on in this episode. In just a few seconds, we're going to see some cinematics and, of course, the before and after. But just wanted to add a few sort of pedestrian paths that connects the upper road and the lower roads. That way, it just gives citizens a shortcut between all these different places. And, of course, just adding trees and bushes and clusters of clusters of grass just all over the place to make that area look a little bit nicer, a little bit greener, and that was kind of what I was aiming for. Anyways, here it is, the long-awaited before and after. As you can see, we cover quite a bit of ground on this episode, and if you enjoyed what we did so far, please consider giving this video a like. That's very much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel and haven't already, you might want to subscribe. That way you get a notification next time I post a video. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.